Hello and thanks for watching this Cloud9 ERP Solutions video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to talk about processing bank transactions. So in traditional financial applications, you would need to create all your transactions in parallel in order to stay ahead of it with what's going on with the real world. So whether it's a bank account or a credit card, this would help you stay on top of it so when you went to do your bank reconciliation, you are all caught up. But with Acumatica, we have multiple methods for bringing in your bank transactions. We're going to talk about how we match them today. So you can see here is my process bank transaction screen. So we take a look. I have my company checking account here. I have a credit card here. There's a few other accounts. But any of these accounts, we can import in all of our transactions that have come in from the bank, the transactions the bank knows about. And then we can go through systematically and match them against Acumatica or create additional transactions on the fly. And that's what we're doing here. And this is all helpful for saving you a lot of time. When you go to do your bank rec, it's a very straightforward process because in the process of matching or creating, you're automatically clearing in Acumatica. And we'll get to all of this. So if we take a look at the corporate credit card, we'll open it up. We have some transactions here. Now, the first thing is how did they get here? So how they got here is I clicked on Upload File, and I had a QBO file, QuickBooks Online. Acumatica supports that, or OFX, or you can import using an Excel file. OFX and QBO are the best possible formats because they validate the possibility of bringing in duplicate transactions. If there's a date range that you accidentally import twice, the system will tell you about it and say this is a duplicate transaction. So what I did is I went to a bank, in this case a credit card company, and I downloaded those files and then I clicked upload in order to get it into Acumatica. That's one method. The other option is Acumatica has a bank feeds option. And it supports just about every bank out there. It runs off the Plaid network. So you can ask us and we can tell you whether your bank is compatible. But there's a download button here, and you hit that button at any given moment. It'll bring down the latest transactions that your bank knows about. Now, additionally, you can also schedule this button so that it runs nightly or monthly or whatever you'd like. So it'll run in the background, and when you show up at the screen, you'll see the latest transactions. So that gets us to this screen. So what is the screen all about? What am I looking at? Well, on the left-hand side, I'm looking at all the transactions that the bank knows about. On the right-hand side, I'm looking for opportunities to either match or to create a transaction in Acumatica. So let's go through some of these examples. So the first example I'm going to show is our ability to create a transaction. So I'm looking at these and I see, for example, a Facebook transaction of $352. Now, when I highlight it, I don't see anything here on the right. If there's a match, for example, we created a payment in Acumatica. Maybe we had an invoice from Facebook, if you could even get an invoice from Facebook. Maybe we have an invoice and we made a payment in the system. And then later on, we downloaded this and there's a match. So we're going to talk about the matches in a moment. But in this case, we have the transaction. Acumatica doesn't know anything about it. So we have the opportunity to create a transaction in Acumatica on the fly. So if we click this button here, Acumatica asks us, well, what are we doing here? So the most standard option is we're creating a transaction in the cash accounting module. If we pick anything else, we'll be asked to select a vendor for AP or a customer for AR. We're going to make this nice and simple. This is a cash transaction. The date, the payment date, is matched from the bank. So that's 9/30/2020. And then we have this thing called entry type. So in Acumatica, we have entry types. Entry types essentially are coded to your GL account. So if we take a look, we'll go to banking and we'll go to entry types. Open up a new tab here. We can see in our demo software, there are a few entry types created. And I created an additional one called marketing. But notice what we've done here. We created marketing. This option here tells us that it's a disbursement, not a receipt. So you have some level of protection here, because if we go back, if we're looking at a receipt transaction, for example, we only want to see entry types that are associated to income, something that hits our income account. So, but if we go back, this one was a disbursement, it's marketing expense. And look what I did here. I coded it to a GL account marketing expense. Now you can create additional ones here. Let's say, for example, hardware expense. So this is a disbursement. We'll call it hardware. We'll go over here, and I'm not sure that we have a GL account, but we'll just make this an office expense. And we have sub accounts set up, so I'll just zero those out and we'll save it. Now, the other thing I did here, and what you need to do once you create your entry type, is you need to associate it to the appropriate cash accounts. And this is because you may have certain entry types that are not applicable to certain cash accounts. So if we go into corporate credit card and we go to our entry types, we can add any entry type that we have there. We'll add the hardware to associate it to this corporate credit card. So now that we've done that, if we go back to process bank transactions, and we're highlighting on this Facebook, we're in the middle of it, we put our data in there, and we look for an entry type, we can choose marketing. So what Acumatica did here is it created a line, but you can add additional lines if you want to break it out. But it created a line with the specific marketing expense GL account, made it nice and easy for us. And now we've coded a brand new transaction that'll get created. Now you can also notice there's a rule set here that you can create. So you could take this and say, well, anytime I see, for example, Facebook spelled this way, I want you to automatically suggest this marketing entry type. So that's an option there. You have a whole rules thing that you can do here. And then you click the auto match over here and it'll go through all these transactions and it'll pick them apart. If you have these transactions happening every single month, or there's a lot of them, the auto match with the rule will save you a lot of time. Okay, so we've created this transaction. Now let's take a look at, for example, Lowe's. So we'll highlight Lowe's and we'll create a new transaction here. This one is hardware. And now we've created a new transaction for this. So this is something, again, our credit card knows about it. Acumatica doesn't. We need to hit our expense account for this $610.85. This will help us a lot to make sure that we're creating all the expenses against our GL. So that's another transaction that we're creating. Now, moving ahead, if we take a look at some additional transactions here about matching. So over here we have Amazon something. So if I highlight it, notice what Acumatica does. It looked through the system and it found a transaction for this $1.30. And it's giving you all the information here. You can click on it, actually open up the payment. It found the payment. And it gives us a match relevance here. This is how it goes through the system and looks. Now, the way it found it was pretty much because the date was the same and the amount was the same. But you can change those settings right here under match settings. And this is on the fly. We're making this change. But under banking preferences, you can go in and change the defaults. But you can see it's looking for disbursements either 5 days before the bank transaction date or 2 days after. So you can customize this to how accurate your credit card transaction is versus the payment that you post in Acumatica. Typically, it should be the same, but you never know. Sometimes for deposits, for example, we're talking about receipt matching. For deposits, your deposit might happen a couple of days later, so you can change these dates as you need to. And you have other options here for invoice matching. We're going to get to invoice matching and all that. And then before we move down, there's a relevance calculation. So Acumatica, we talked about it earlier, the date, the amount. What does it do to calculate the relevance? Well, by default, our demo is taking too much weight on the reference number, in my opinion. The reference number coming from the credit card is probably not going to match your reference number in Acumatica. So for me, I like to put higher percentages in the date and the amount. And when you put all that together, you'll see a higher relevance. We only got 20 here, but if we adjusted this, you'd see a much higher number. Now, if we go back, notice the absolute relevance and the relative relevance. So essentially what this means is that Acumatica can automatically check the box here, and you could move on without having to check this manually. So based on your relevance and based on these parameters, you can get this really tuned well so you can be in and out and the matches will occur for you automatically. So, but this transaction was $1.30. We're going to match it. So that's great. We matched it to a payment that was already in Acumatica. So that's under AP and checks. So we wrote a check. In this case, it was a prepayment. The next one is this best container. So it's $296. Notice there is no payment to match to, but there is an invoice. So Acumatica can find, additionally, it can also find an invoice that matches, a date that matches up, and it'll automatically create the payment for you and marry it to the invoice. So this also can help. You may have an invoice in the system. Somebody out there decided, well, let me just pay it with a credit card. You come over to your process banking, you can get the payment automatically created. That'll take care of matching it up with your bank balance. But additionally, we're also going to offset that so that AP bill's balance goes out to zero. So there's a match to invoices. Now, the last one is matching to an expense receipt. So in this case, we have an employee that went out to Best Buy and maybe needed some office equipment. So when we highlight that, we can see that the expense receipt was matched up. So for that, let's take a look at what that looks like. And this is the expense receipt. Acumatica has a great expense receipt and claim system that allows users to either use their mobile app or come to the office, drag and drop the expense, and code it here. So what we did was we created a receipt. We gave it the 9/30 date. And down here, we gave it the amount. There's additional information here. You can choose quantities and get further detailed into it. But we said quantity one, $179.99. And we could have put a reference number in there. We can attach it to a project in Acumatica. We paid it with our corporate credit card. So this corporate credit card in Acumatica is linked to our cash account. So when we look at our bank cash account, you'll see there's a corporate card associated was created. And that's what the employee can see that they have access to. And you can create rights to what employees can see what accounts and all that. But that's what we did. We paid it with the company credit card. Here it is right here. So we created this and we saved it. That's all we needed to do. We didn't need to make a claim or anything. We just created the expense receipt. And that's how this matched up here alongside of our credit card transaction that we imported. So we'll check that. So that's that. Now, newer to Acumatica 2021 R2, we also now have the ability to match payments and invoices to multiple documents. So if we take a look at this Adobe transaction, we highlight it, and we click on Match to Payments, there is no 5590 payment in the system on or around September 30th, 2020. So that's why it didn't show. It would show up otherwise. But we have this match to multiple payments. So if we check it, Acumatica will show anything that's unmatched. And if we scroll over to the right, you can see we have two payments. And when we check them both off, check one at a time, you can see a matched amount of $50. If we check the other one, you can see $55.90, and then it also calculates your unmatched amount, which now is zero. And you could also do this for receipts and disbursements. It's the same thing. So we check that off, and now we have a match here as well. Notice the check boxes. Every time we get everything matched, we have a checkbox here, and you can see them down here. So this transaction is now an Amazon transaction in our credit card. And if we click on Match to Invoices, and we click Match Multiple Documents, there are a ton of different documents here that we could look through and match those as well. So if we scroll over to the right, we can see the doc date. I can move these columns around, of course. I can move the amounts around. I'll move that over here. And these are the two that I'm going to match up to make this disbursement amount $500. So somebody created an AP bill in the system, then they created another one, and the Amazon transaction, the Amazon purchase, was the total of both of them. But maybe for some reason somebody created it beforehand, or it just needed to be broken out into different AP bills. So we check that off, and we're closer to a match. But we still have 130 here, $100.30. We'll check that off, and now we have an unmatched amount of $0. So now that we're done, or at least we're done with this, we can click on the Process button, and Process will match up and remove these items from the list, so we don't have to deal with them anymore. They're all done. Or it'll create the transactions, depending upon what we did here. So if I click Process, Acumatica has completed all these transactions. Now, this will save you tons of time because not only is it creating all the transactions, typically these transactions from credit cards are not in the system already, typically, because people are fast and furious with their credit card, they're on the road, and these transactions occur quicker than any clerk can maybe create them in the system. So this is very helpful, particularly if we start using rules too. You start creating rules. But even for the matches, this is very helpful. So whatever we matched, when we go to our banking reconciliation, so we'll create a new bank rec, and we'll hit the plus button here. And we'll select our corporate credit card. So what we do here is we put the statement ending balance here, and then we check off all of the transactions that we see in our statement. This is nothing new. But what might be very unique and what definitely can save you a lot of time is we have the ability to match up the transactions to automatically check, reconcile against the ones that have cleared. Now, why did these clear? Why are they checked clear? How does the system know? Well, it knows because we were in the process banking transactions and we took care of those transactions. We either matched them or created new. So the system, the bank rec, knows that these are cleared. So we have a button here. We can click on Reconcile Process, and Acumatica will automatically take these transactions that are cleared, automatically cleared, and it'll mark them reconciled here. So when you put all this together and you use the process bank transactions, your bank recs could be done in literally minutes because most of the work is getting done for you through this functionality of process bank transactions. So that's it. That's our process bank transactions. We talked about how to get the transactions in. You can either upload a file or our bank feed module. We'll take them right in. You can even schedule it. All the transactions on the left, we can either match to payments, multiple payments, or single, invoices, multiple invoices or single invoices, expense receipts, or we can create fresh transactions that were afterthoughts, things that were not in Acumatica already. And once this is done, it helps a lot with our bank rec. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this video was useful. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or like it. If you have any additional questions about this or you need help setting it up, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and have a great day.